Welcome to the channel, welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. I'm Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and let's jump straight into it. So yesterday there was a story that came out from the Times linking Manchester United amongst other clubs in a transfer tug of war for Morgan Rogers. Now, sometimes when you hear these stories, they either accelerate and take off and go somewhere, or they'll just absolutely disappear and you'll never hear from it again. But this one is one of those that has taken off because we've now got the Telegraph saying that a near £100 million race is developing between Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea and Paris Saint-Germain for Morgan Rogers, expected to be one of the most in-demand players this summer. United are strongly interested, with Aston Villa demanding £80 million plus potentially rising to £90 million if a bidding war develops. And we've also had Ben Jacobs come in saying that Manchester United are now tracking Morgan Rogers. He is appreciated by both Michael Carrick and Jason Wilcox. Rogers is likely to leave Aston Villa this summer, even if they qualify for the Champions League. And then we've also had Sky Sports confirming the story as well. So Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United and Paris Saint-Germain are all considering a summer move for Aston Villa's Morgan Rogers. Despite signing a new long-term deal till 2031, Villa are expected to face interest in the 23-year-old following his continued rise under Unai Emery. Man United are looking at the left-wing position this summer, and like Rogers, with Sky Sports News already reporting their admiration for Yan Diomande and Iliman Ndiaye, who have been the other two names linked with if we do go for a left winger, because the narrative is, do we go for a left winger? Do we go for a left back? And I think we could probably now add Morgan Rogers onto that list of potential left-wing targets. He is a player that does provide a little bit more versatility, a little bit like Ndiaye and like Yan Diomande. Yan Diamande's playing majority on the right this season for as a right winger for RB Leipzig, but can play on the left. And the same with Iliman Ndiaye as well, can play left, right, centrally. Morgan Rogers has played as an attacking midfielder as like a 10 or on the left-hand side, has played a couple of games, I think, on the right, and one is a second striker, I think, as well. So, three players that offer a lot of variety and flexibility up front. Give us your thoughts and feelings, though, in the comments straight away. Would you go for Morgan Rogers? I know I asked that question yesterday, but I don't know. The news caught me a little bit off guard yesterday, right? And would I take Morgan Rogers? The answer is yes. The narrative or the worry is budget, but I would pay £80 million for Yan Diomande, so I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say, well, it's a bit too much for Morgan Rogers. Morgan Rogers is probably a safer bet in terms of Premier League proven, a little bit older than Yan Diomande. Yan Diomande is having his first breakthrough season at RB Leipzig, so it's a massive gamble, an expensive gamble to go for, and obviously the transition from Bundesliga to Premier League, we've seen that not work out in our favour. When buying attackers, if you think Shinji Kagawa, Mkhitaryan, Jadon Sancho, all players that had really, really good numbers from the Bundesliga, didn't quite translate to Man United. That's three times that we've attempted to do that, and it hasn't quite worked out. But I would pay that money for Yan Diomande because I think he's a fantastic talent. So, I would do exactly the same for Morgan Rogers. The question would be, do we have the budget available to do that? Because I wouldn't buy Rogers and do what United have done in the past, which is spend all their budget on a player that we don't really need and then ignore the holes in the squad. If you're saying we've still got the money to go for the two midfielders minimum, maybe three, and, a left back and centre back or whatever, and then you've got some money to spare to go and get an expensive forward as a rotation option and a backup and, potentially a future first teamer, then I'm all for it. I don't see that as a massive issue. We need rotation, we need depth. There's no point just buying depth, if they're not quite the quality to come in and actually play and affect games. You want players that can come off of the bench or rotate with Bruno or rotate with Cunha or offer competition, but can affect games from the bench, can affect games from starting as well. And I think Morgan Rogers could be that. I do worry though that the price is massively inflated. To pay more for anybody than we did for Mbumo and Cunha just feels absolutely insane to me, because they had ridiculous numbers for Wolves and Brentford, and then you're talking about paying £20-30 million more for someone that doesn't quite have their goal contributions is nuts. But that's inflation for you. And, the teams at the moment are setting their stalls out and putting inflated prices because it just gives them a stronger position from a negotiation standpoint as well. Like this time last year, we were hearing nothing but PSR, and, we all had to become financial experts to try and work out whether United actually had any money to spend, because the narrative going around was that we had no money and it was sell to buy and we were struggling to sell all these players, and, it wasn't looking very good going into the transfer window financially for United. Obviously, we'd lost the Europa League final, no European football, finished 15th. United are over, we're not going to have any money to spend. And I'm pretty sure we spent like £250 million in the summer. So the narrative from the media and stuff, I don't think is worth paying too much attention to at the moment in terms of fees and costs and bits, because teams are just going to put out that, we want £100 million for this player because they want to detract interest as much as they can, but also maintain their value of their player when clubs do come calling. But that's really interesting. The other interesting thing I found about it as well was the fact that there's quite a few teams like Paris Saint-Germain interested in him as well. So clearly there's a player there. Clearly there's something that a lot of the top teams see in Morgan Rogers. And yeah, I would be all for it. I'd go for it as long as it doesn't affect the midfield rebuild, because the priority has still got to be the midfield. Because the other thing I was thinking is it make no sense for us to spend, we don't want to spend £100 million on Tonali, but yet on the flip side but we'd rather spend £100 million on Morgan Rogers. Like, that makes no sense to me. But there's other reasons I think with Tonali and the price, because the reality is with Tonali, he has had a 10-month ban from football for gambling, and that is a massive risk, regardless of the cost, going for a player that's got that sort of history. Hopefully he's past it, but it is a risk spending that amount of money on somebody that's got that sort of record. So Morgan Rogers, get involved in the comments. That we can add him to our potential left wing targets, whether we'll go for him, whether we've got the budget, whether it materializes or not. Let's wait and see. But get involved in the comments. Give us your thoughts and feelings regarding that. That'll be interesting to hear what you've got to say regarding that later. Now, let's stick with the left-hand side, because that is another priority outside of the midfield. And we don't know if we are going for a left winger. Just obviously mention the names that are linked there. If we don't do that and we go for a left-back, then Lewis-Skelly's name has been doing the rounds a lot recently. Now, Sammy Makobo, who writes for the BBC, very connected when it comes specifically to Arsenal, saying that at present, Arsenal will listen to offers for Myles Lewis-Skelly. United linked, academy players can be counted as pure profit in the account, so would provide the biggest transfer fund boost. So, according to a BBC journalist that's connected to Arsenal would listen to offers for Myles Lewis-Skelly, and I wonder if that's why, because I think that with the Lewis-Skelly one, his agent has come to United to sort of seek out some interest, and maybe that's perked United's ears up to say, well, hold on, we've got a young player here, Premier League proven, can play left back, can provide cover in midfield as well, let's not forget, so could be your third choice cheap midfielder. Could be a rotation option at left back if you want to build a squad and you want rotation, you want subs, you want, to be able to rest players and stuff. Then he does give you a little bit of flexibility and variety there. Can grow, can develop. Seems like a decent option. Depends on the price again for Arsenal and the budget and stuff, but that's an interesting one. We'll keep an eye on that. If Arsenal are open to selling, he's being linked to United. Maybe there's a deal to be done there. Maybe that's the one that we do go for. But we've obviously got a lot of things can happen between now and the actual transfer window opening. But give us your shouts on Skelly in the comments down below. Now let's run through the midfield news. So as well as the usual, he's on the usual suspect list, but the main names doing, like, over the last couple of days anyway, has been all about Elliot Anderson and Sandro Tonali, but it's gone a little bit quiet on Carlos Baleba, who I still think is the player that we're going to get. That's just my personal opinion. I know some of you will be different in the comments, but it just feels like we've done all the groundwork on him, and it's just seems like an obvious one that we are going to potentially go for. But Ben Jacobs said that if Manchester United fail to sign Elliot Anderson and aren't prepared to make a big bid for Sandro Tonali, then Carlos Baleba could quickly emerge as a realistic and more affordable transfer target in late April or early May. And he did say that it's sort of 50-50 at the moment whether we would be going for Baleba, but we've had other reports suggesting that Baleba would be now seen as like the secondary midfield target. He's no longer like the priority. It's Anderson, Tonali, Wharton, I think, on those on the priority list, and then Baleba as the sort of second midfielder, which, I'm not dead against going down that route. I know there's red flags around Carlos Baleba's form, but if you look at his profile and what he would offer to the team, it does tick a lot of the boxes still from in terms of like a defensive shield, pace, power, athleticism. Like he's got everything that we're missing. It's just his form this season has been absolutely disastrous. Where he's only completed 90 minutes 3 times, I think, this season. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong with that, but I've been doing some research. Going to do a bit of a deep dive video, I think, next on Carlos Baleba, and that is a massive concern. Is the form, but if you look at the profile, you know, he does tick a lot of boxes of what we would need for the midfield. So it does feel more realistic, Baleba, but, you know, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see what United try to do. Now, another name that's been doing the rounds quite a lot over the last couple of days is Angelo Stiller. Now, Sport Build are saying that Manchester United and Chelsea are among the clubs most interested in Angelo Stiller, who is ready to leave Stuttgart. Stuttgart are believed to be open to selling if an offer of around £50 million arrives. It's obviously a little bit more than his release clause, but Stuttgart can buy him out of his release clause, and then so, you know, maybe to save all of that hassle, you do just pay a little bit more, a little bit above the release clause, just to save all of that complication and stuff. And of course, it wouldn't be a transfer window, or it wouldn't be a transfer if Chelsea weren't hovering around like they do, like a bad smell, trying to sign everybody. They seem to get linked with every single transfer. It's not even just United stories. There's loads of stories going around where it's like, Tottenham are linked with this player, but so are Chelsea. And you're like, how many players can they actually sign and get into their squad? It's insane. But yeah, of course, Chelsea are going to be there. We would have that Christopher Vival, not connection, but, you know, apparently Vival, Jason Wilcox really like Angelo Stiller. Could it be that is our second midfield target? And I would actually be interested to see, like, Baleba and Stiller would be a pretty interesting midfield combination. Or so same with Gomez, Stiller. Like, I'm not against it. And that's where with the midfield news, you know, it's exciting to have so many players on a list that improve us. And it's just a case of working out who wants to come, who can we afford, and all of that stuff. So it's going to be really interesting. But Stiller seems to be picking up pace as a potential target. But the narrative still is United want to go for more Premier League proven. So maybe we're still lining him up as a potential backup if we get some more money, or if Ugarte goes and we get some money and we're like, okay, maybe the third midfielder. I'm not sure, but yes, Stiller doing the rounds. I know he's quite popular from some of you in the comments as well, and rightly so. He's a quality player. So yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with that one. Just on Ugarte, there's been report from a Italian news outlet close to Napoli saying that George Mendes is working to facilitate an exit for Manuel Ugarte this summer after limited game time under Michael Carrick at Manchester United. Napoli are monitoring Ugarte, but currently prioritise João Gomez from Wolves, who could be available cheaper if Wolves are relegated. United are prepared to accept a loss on Ugarte to fund midfield reinforcements, with Casemiro also expected to depart. Now, that'll piss me off if we don't go for João Gomez. Like, I really, really want João Gomez. I think he's an excellent opportunity midfielder, and I think he's a good player, Premier League proven, all of that stuff. We've spoken about João Gomez before, but if Napoli are interested, that just gives me another reason to want to go for João Gomez. Bring him in, and then potentially Napoli might then pivot and look at Manuel Ugarte. But Fabrizio Romano, on the Ugarte situation, said that Ugarte is being offered to several Italian clubs, including Juventus. He was also offered to Napoli in the summer 2025, but they decided not to proceed. The midfielder is now on his way out of Manchester United. So there are more noises regarding Manuel Ugarte and his exit, and it just feels like it's been inevitable anyway, but it feels more serious now as we obviously approach the transfer window, that yes, more and more likely that Ugarte's going to go. It's one of those, isn't it? It didn't quite work out, and it is what it is. If we can get at least our money back for what we owe anyway still on Ugarte, and then bring somebody else in, then fair enough. Now, another player that's been linked in the past, name dropped by Rio Ferdinand recently, and then coincidentally Ekrem Connor, who is very, very miss. I'm going to say not even hit and miss. I've never seen him have a hit. Saying that Manchester United are very interested in Kees Smit from AZ Alkmaar, considered one of the most exciting future number 10s. United have sent scouts multiple times, with several clubs also tracking him. AZ are expected to demand around £44 million. And that's a coincidence. Rio Ferdinand name drops the player as somebody he thinks United should be all over and going for, and then conveniently an opportunity journalist has come out linking us with Kees Smit. But Good player, have had links with him in the past, though he is a player that's come up a few times over the last few months. But then saying that, which midfielder hasn't come up in the rumour mill for Man United over the last few months? But consistently, there have been a lot of links with Kees Smit. Very, very interesting profile of player. Don't know. I would go for Kees Smit, but that would be for me more like the third midfield signing. Get a Anderson and a Tonali as your number one, a João Gomez or maybe a Mateus Fernandes as your second choice, or a Stiller or a Wharton or someone of that nature, and then as your third potential midfielder, someone like Schmidt who's young and you're not having to force him straight into the first team. Would have time to settle, would have time to learn off of a few of the other players, and you could bring him in for cup games and and all of that stuff if you're going for Kees Smit. It's a lot of money as well, but then every player's a lot of money nowadays, aren't they? Everything's a lot of money in general, isn't it? Let's be real, not just footballers and transfer fees. Like everything's just gone through the roof, hasn't it? But yeah, get involved in the comments though. Let me know what you think about Kees Smit. I want to see more credibility than that source, but have been linked with him. We've had reports that we've scouted him and looked at him and all sorts ahead of the summer transfer window. I'm just not convinced that should be our second. Like, definitely not going to be our first choice midfield target that we go for. I'm not convinced it would be should be the second one either. That would, for me, would be like the third. And if we got £44 million to spend on like a third midfielder, I'm not convinced, but we'll wait and see. We shall see how that one plays out. Now, the other position we might be looking at is the centre-back. There's been a lot of noise recently regarding Schlotterbeck. Well, Fabrizio Romano said that he has now Fabrizio Romano has confirmed that he signed his new deal at Borussia Dortmund, so he's not going to be going anywhere. Improved salary, he'll be among the best players at Dortmund. Schlotterbeck stays despite interest from several clubs in Europe. So I think there was an opportunity there where clubs were looking at him. If he didn't sign his new contract, he would have been available at a really, really good price. We'll wait and see what happens in the future, because there were some reports suggesting that if Schlotterbeck does sign a new deal, they might include a release clause, which would kick in the following year to where they could get a little bit more money. Dortmund do things like that. They are a selling club, ultimately, Dortmund. They might just give him a new contract, protect his value, even double. I think I heard somewhere like a £60 million release clause or something, but we'll wait for more information on that. That was a rumour doing the rounds before, but yeah, no Schlotterbeck. So for those, including myself, that would have absolutely been all over this deal had he become available. Unfortunately not. He's going to be staying at Borussia Dortmund, but that doesn't mean that we can't find a player of his sort of profile, left-footed, left-sided centre-back. Another player that keeps getting linked with us consistently is Lukeba. So RB Leipzig and Castello Lukeba have agreed that the defender will leave the club this summer. Intermediaries have already contacted several top Premier League sides, including Manchester United, who are currently assessing defensive options ahead of the window. That came from Graham Bailey, who is hit and miss when it comes to these sort of stories. But Lukeba is a player that we've had constant links with for a very, very long time. In the report itself, it was saying that apparently his release clause is valued at around £70 million, but that there's a sort of a gentleman's agreement or a deal where he could be available for around £55 million. And again, it all comes down to budgeting, doesn't it? Do we have the money available to spend that amount on a centre back, or are we going to look at somebody cheaper and more developmental, younger? I think it all depends on how much we have to spend on the midfield. How much we have to spend on a left winger if we go for a left winger, or a left back if we go for a left back? But wouldn't be against going for Lukeba. I think he's a really good player, so I would be up for that one personally, as long as it doesn't affect us getting players in the other positions as well. But it's all shaping up to be a pretty interesting summer. According to Harry Maguire, though, he said this summer is going to be big, really, really big. We need more players. We need better quality. We need players to come into the starting 11. So Harry Maguire again reiterating. He said that, I think, a couple of times now, that he is expecting it to be a big summer for Manchester United. Now, whether he's saying that from a fan perspective or does he have some inside information about what United are planning? Has he been in conversations with while he's been in talks with his contract situation, where he's been, inside information? I don't know how that works. I don't know what happens in the inner circles of a football club, whether they hear about transfers beforehand or not. Who knows? But has he been... is Is he saying that because he wants it to happen, or is he saying that because he knows it's going to happen? I'm going to choose to go to the second one and keep my giddiness ahead of the summer. Because when it comes from a player, because we hear that all the time, it's going to be a big summer, but it's normally from like the gossip outlets and the sort of newspapers but when you hear it from a player, I tend to think it's a little bit more believable. But we shall wait and see what happens regarding that. But almost game time. It's been an absolute age, hasn't it, since we actually played a game of football, and it's still so annoying that we have to wait until Monday night. But thankfully we are clawing our way ahead of that game against Leeds. Let's just hope we can get the job done, get the 3 points. I think we need 4 wins now between now and the end of the season to guarantee Champions League football. So let's get it done. But give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments. Give us your thoughts on all the other topics discussed in today's video. That's you all up to date with the latest news and transfer updates. Don't forget to smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.